Hey guys, I'm Jonas. Today we're going to be repowering this old Troy Bilt tiller, so stick around. So I've had this old Troy Bilt tiller sitting around for several years now. The Tecumseh engine that was on it had a rod that was knocking real bad and it was smoking pretty bad, so it's pretty well shot and needs to be replaced. Alright, so far we pulled the bolt out of the center of the crankshaft to let the pulley slide back off the back of the motor a little ways. You can't get the bolt all the way out or the pulley all the way off, but you can get it back far enough that it'll let you get the 4 bolts that are holding the engine to the machine. So you pull those 4 mounting bolts out, and that's going to let the engine drop down off of the machine. Then we just disconnected throttle cable. We had some electrical stuff here for the electric start to disconnect, but other than that, we've got 2 more bolts to pull out here, and this engine should drop right off. So just like that, we've got our engine out. Just 4 bolts on the back, plus the one in the center of the crankshaft that holds the pulley on. I removed the blower housing from the front of the engine just so that I could hold the flywheel while I was removing the bolt from the center of the crankshaft, because otherwise if you just try to loosen that bolt, the crankshaft just spins, you can't get it loose. I'm gonna just leave that pulley in there. There's really no reason for me to remove it, and I've got to, when I put it back together, make sure that that bolt stays in the center of that pulley and threads into my new crankshaft. Our new Kohler engine does not have electric start, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove this battery plus all the brackets that hold it on there. So I've got the 2 engines sitting here side by side so I can take a few measurements and make sure that things are going to work before I just go try to bolt this engine on there. I've used my vernier calipers to measure from the outside edge of these washers to the mounting face here on both engines to figure out where that pulley is actually going to stop. And I took a couple of the spacers off of the old engine and put them on this engine to get it to the same distance. Then I measured from the mounting face to the end of this shaft, and this shaft is about 2 millimeters longer than the other shaft, which I think is going to be alright, so I haven't done anything as far as shortening that shaft yet. We're going to see how it fits here. I've got my keyway in there, and I put some anti-seize on here. That's it, got it all back together. We got the pulleys lined up on the back just right. I ended up having to pull it back apart and put the other 3 spacers that I had on the crankshaft so that it brought that pulley back just a little bit farther so that it would line up with the bottom pulley where the belt needed to run. So we got that just how it needed to be. Everything went back together really smooth. You definitely want to make sure that your pulley is sliding well on the crankshaft to be able to install and remove this engine, especially later on down the road. That's why we wanted to put that anti-seize on there too, just to keep that pulley from seizing up. I do use this anaerobic gasket maker when I'm putting stuff like this together, just so that those bolts can't vibrate back loose. It's not quite as aggressive as Loctite. You can still get the bolts out, but it's more like putting gum on your bolts so that the bolts can't back out on their own. They may be loose a little bit, but they can't actually vibrate all the way out. So this stuff works really well. I use this all the time. I'll put a link in this in the description down below. But we've got to go ahead and put some oil in this thing, some fuel. I think we're going to end up disconnecting the low oil shutdown on it when this thing gets buried down deep in the dirt. The engine is at enough of an angle that I think the oil shutdown's probably going to try to shut the engine off, so we'll probably end up disconnecting that and maybe putting just a little bit extra oil in there. You saw when I was putting it back together, I had to remove the pull rope cover on this one so that I could hold that crankshaft while I was tightening the bolt down in the pulley, just like when we were taking the old engine off. So got everything tightened up. We're going to put some oil and gas in it here and test this thing out. I did end up getting a different bolt to go in the center of the crankshaft. The one from the old engine was too big, so this took like a 5/16 by 20 thread that was like 1.5 inches long. And then I was able to reuse the original throttle cable. It is backwards up top. When it says fast up there, it's slow down here. So I could get a new throttle cable that would switch that around so that it was right on the top and the bottom, but at least it works for right now. We got oil and gas put in this thing, fired right up on the first pull. Everything seems to be working well, goes forward and reverse just like it should. Tines are kicking in, no belt squealing or anything like that. We do have axle seals leaking on this thing, so I've got a set of seals on the way. As soon as those come in, I'll do another video on replacing those seals. So the only reason that we used this Kohler motor was because I just had it sitting on the shelf and hadn't put it on anything else yet. So I just grabbed it and threw it on there. If I was going to go buy an engine to replace that one that we took off, I probably would just go get a Predator motor from Harbor Freight. Those have been really good engines. I've used a ton of those Predator motors. And they hold up just as well as any other engine, especially on a tiller like this that only gets used a few times each year. It's not like this thing's going to get a ton of hours put on it. So this Kohler is really overkill for what it needs. You know, these engines new, I think are a little over $300, so I wouldn't have spent that much money to go buy an engine to put on here. So this engine will be great, I think, for resale value, just because people know the Kohler name and are going to hold it to a little bit higher standard, I guess. So I'm going to be able to get a little more money out of my resale value on this, which is all I'm planning on doing. I don't need a tiller, so I was just fixing it to resell. If you guys got some good value out of this video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. That really helps our channel out a lot so we can keep bringing you more videos like this. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.